Okay. We're good? All right, thank you. Welcome, everyone, to the February 15, 2024 meeting of the Capital Improvements Committee. We've done our safety briefing. I'll entertain a motion to approve our January minutes. Ms. Hall moves. Mr. Johnson seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
It is unanimous. I'll entertain now a motion to approve our agenda. Mr. Johnson moves. Ms. Hall seconds. All in favor? It's unanimous. Agenda is approved. With that, we will move to our financial report, East Boston expenditures and budget. Who is up for that? Mr. Jackson doing that today? And he's not here yet? Okay. Why don't we reorder the agenda? Next item on the agenda, and we'll come back to finance, is the MGT report and highlights. I understand the superintendent commissioned a review by an outside entity, MGT. I understand the report was attached to material circulated earlier, and I think the superintendent wanted to provide kind of a summary and update, and then any discussion.
Good morning.
Good morning.
As you all know, the first 100 days of my transition into the superintendent was deemed a listening and learning opportunity. And in addition to my own listen and learn interviews, focus groups, observations, deep dives into data, I have also commissioned several reports that I hope to be able to triangulate and determine where there is alignment in what I perceived during my 100 days and shared out in a report, and the reports that have been commissioned by third parties. This is one of those reports. It was conducted by MGT, which is an outside entity. And I want to be clear to everyone as I run through this that this is not an evaluation of the operations department. It was simply meant to look at where we are as an operations department and help me think about recommendations that would put us forward facing into the future. So through this, the MGT met with myself, met with members of the operations department, looked at a variety of documents and benchmarked those documents and those artifacts against other districts in Georgia, organizations like the Council for Great City Schools, and their own expertise that they have as an organization to come up with these recommendations. I want to, again, emphasize the word recommendations. They are not things. We still need to do more discussion around how these things get implemented, and certainly today's discussion from this committee will help drive some of how we take action moving forward. So what I'd like to do is to provide a brief 6 or 7 minute overview and then really open it up to questions and discussion so that you can help contribute to our actions as we advance moving forward. I'm not sure if there are slides, but I know the actual report was sent out.
Yeah, the report was sent out along with the PowerPoint deck previously,
Yes.
but I think all we have here today is the PowerPoint deck, right?
Is the PowerPoint?
Okay, yeah, so
Oh, the PowerPoint is up, okay.
It's on the screen,
it's
but
on the
it's not
screen,
in
but
your
we don't have it in
packet,
front of us.
Dr. Howard
Yeah.
Hall. But you actually have the full report in your packet. So what you see on the next slide should be in some way common knowledge. They are guiding principles or main tenets to any system, any organization, any division. When these guiding tenets or these entities are in place, you have a system or a department or an organization that thrives. So very much like our district, you have to have guiding principles, you have to have alignment, you have to have communication and engagement, motivation and unity, strategic planning, accountability, and adaptability. And this is kind of the baseline of which this report lives, and an overarching recommendation for us that we need to make sure that each of these tenets are in place, well documented, and most importantly, being executed upon in order for our operations department to thrive. In terms of the recommendations, this is a really great summary slide. It basically illustrates to us that if our operations division can follow through with a high level on all of these things, it will help us move from good to great. So the first one is to restructure the organization, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. And so what this speaks to is having a clearly defined chain of command. It also speaks to appropriate levels of leadership. You'll see in future slides that it calls for some changes in job titles, the elimination of positions, the creation of positions. The second recommendation calls for us to review and revise job descriptions. So really making sure we take a deep dive into how each job description is written, ensuring that there is alignment between what the person is doing and what the person needs to do in order to demonstrate excellence on his or her job. And that will also drive compensation as well as how we interview, retain, and select employees. The third recommendation has to do with internal controls. That's what we refer to more of like checks and balances. So making sure that there are budgetary controls on fund movement, that there's operational account and codes to ensure that we are complying with policies and rules and best practices. The fourth recommendation has to do with classification and a compensation review. This actually is already underway in our district. We are expecting a compensation study to be complete later this spring. And the first group of employees that we started with were our classified employees, which directly impacts this particular division. But in alignment with that, you can also see that MGT is making that recommendation. And then a clear delineation between maintenance and capital projects. And my understanding of the history of the organization, that at one time those divisions were together and then they were separated at some point in time. But maintaining that separation and delineation is important, but there also has to be communication and collaboration across both of those areas within that division. So overarching, here are the overall recommendations. Breaking down each one of those, MGT went so far as to look at other districts of similar size and demographics in Georgia and provided me guidance, again, recommendations. These are not meant to be taken as this is how we're going to move forward, but these are recommendations for positions that could be eliminated or changed to ensure that we have the right individuals or the right job titles doing the right work in each department. And also that we are potentially not using positions or eliminating positions where there might be duplication or not the need. If you look and dive into the actual report, MGT purports that if we make these changes, it could actually save the district about $400,000 a year. And again, you'll see additional departments and the recommendations and changes on these slides. We have, as an organization, begun to use these and dive deep into these as we are looking at a district reorg. So this is definitely a guiding document that we are leveraging on how we do our own internal restructuring of not only the Department of Operations, but other departments within our district. The other recommendation speaks to key performance indicators. We have been having that discussion as a board. Obviously, this is how we measure our success. This is how we know our progress as we're moving forward towards critical indicators of success. MGT recommends that we have strategic and policy level KPIs. I think that those are the KPIs that are being referred to in the DOS-REMI. They're the KPIs that we talked about in our last board meeting. They're the KPIs that you all will be voting on next month. But then the report goes on to talk about the importance of having management level and technical level KPIs. And those are the KPIs that are more internal facing. They track our day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month work. And as long as there is alignment between those KPIs and the ultimate outward-facing KPIs, the strategic and policy level, we should know whether we're on track to meet our goals. And so the report is recommending that we do a better job as a district, making sure that these are being used, that they're transparent, and that they are being used to track our success and or progress. The KPI metrics, if you read this left to right, you'll see that it kind of gives us a prescription of how we need to operationalize those, how we need to report those. There has to be clearly defined objectives. We're in the process of doing that now with our strategic plan. They have to be relevant to external and internal stakeholders, as well as our board, which is one of our main stakeholders. We have to have a consistency in reporting. So there should, MGT recommends a dashboard of some kind, some regular way in which we are looking at and tracking, and that we are instituting a plan, do, check, act, or continuous improvement model. As we are reporting those metrics, we're making pivots and changes as needed to make sure that we reach our ultimate goals. We should be using visuals effectively. We should be benchmarking against other districts and or other organizations with similar divisions. And I won't go through all of those. Again, ultimately, we want to have a regular feedback loop so that we are looking at those KPIs and that we're agile in how we are responding to those, so that we're not waiting to the end of the year to realize we didn't make a goal or meet a timeline. The MGT report provides some examples of what some of those are. Some of these can be external facing, again, a part of what we would refer to as our DOS-REMI reporting. But again, I want to emphasize that it is our intent to also have internal facing KPIs that we're looking at on a more frequent basis to track progress along the way. And making these more readily accessible is really the key piece of what this is, readily accessible and that they're acted upon. The other big recommendation from MGT is that our district needs to have accessible and used written standard operations procedures. I have a couple of examples of those if anybody would like to have what those look like. But those are essentially serve as like a handbook for an employee or a handbook for a leader to say, this is how we do certain things in our organization. Those things are tweaked each year, but for the most part, they give us what the purpose and scope of each department is, what the responsibilities are of each member in that division or subdivision, what the procedural steps or instructions are for doing certain tasks, what the safety precautions are. It becomes kind of a roadmap for anybody coming into the organization to help be explicit about what their job expectations are, or anybody transitioning into the department. They're not relying on word of mouth. That may change. And again, given the many leadership changes that we've had within our operations divisions, I can certainly understand why this would be important as a base and a way to codify expectations for employees. The MGT report also recommends a deep dive into transportation, which I know is also of interest to the board. They are recommending that we do a review of the transportation department. We look at our routes, our attendance boundaries. Again, some of these should be recognizable to you, as we've done that in phase 1 of our long-range facilities plan. So there's a little bit of validation in this report that we've already started making some of these changes. pros and cons of subcontracting, as well as class and compensation study. And as I've mentioned, that class and compensation study has already commenced. I referred to this earlier in the presentation. We have to have, not only in the operations division, but as an organization as a whole, a continuous improvement process. And in order to do that, we have to be able to identify our challenges, our obstacles. We have to be able to use those KPIs to plan and make improvements and track progress. And then the circle continues, because after you execute, you come back to the table, and using many of those same indicators, that process starts again. So it is a continuous improvement model, and it will help us essentially move as an entire district from where we are now to where we want to be optimally. So that is a summary of the report. As mentioned before the presentation began, there is a more detailed written report accessible to each of you for a deep dive, but at this point, I'd really like to drive conversation and questions. But remember, I am not MGT. I'm here reporting on their behalf. So if you go too deep in questions, I may not be able to answer those questions, but I'll certainly take them back to the organization to get answers. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Watts. I know a copy of their report was circulated earlier, and I appreciate your overview this morning. Are there any questions or comments? Ms. Hall?
Is there a chance that we could actually get someone from the organization to come? Yes. That would be very helpful, I think.
Absolutely, Ms. Hall, and I attempted to do that. They had a conflict. So in a future meeting, we'll definitely make them accessible.
Ms. Grabowski?
Good morning. I just want to say thank you for commissioning this study. I think it's extremely informative, and a lot of the things that were in there, I was just glad to see them kind of put forward. And I think this will help to elevate our department, as you said, from good to great. I think this adds a lot of structure that is really helpful, especially as our district continues to grow and the responsibilities under operations continue to grow. Some of the KPIs, I was really happy to see some of the ones that were recommended in there. I was a little surprised to see them talk so much about Excel. I think there might be some more sophisticated dashboards to be able to use. But I just want to say overall that I'm very grateful for this. You know, I think it could be hard sometimes to see recommendations, but having them come from an external third party, I think is really valuable. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Howard Hall?
Yes, in the future, will compensatory programs be included in a study similar to this?
I did not commission for that report, but we can certainly look into that.
Because that's, that's Title 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Yes,
for those.
absolutely.
Ms. Grabowski?
One comment I did mean to make about specifically was about the job descriptions.
Mm-hmm.
I was just speaking with a colleague not long ago who talked about a job description she had posted for like over a year. And then she had someone else review the actual language that was in that job description. And she feels very strongly that simply redoing that job description led her to find the ideal candidate for that position. So I think it's something that's easy to take for granted and just keep reusing the same language, but.
Yes, absolutely.
Anyone else? All right, I will just say I also appreciate the external look. Some of it was validating, like, hey, here are some continuous improvement processes we've implemented internally already. And some of it highlighted shortcomings that were external, like if the people aren't there, the people aren't there. That's always a challenge. So I'm looking forward to final recommendations and kind of decision-making from superintendent and staff to see where we go next. But this provides a good roadmap. So thank you. All right, moving on in the agenda. Let's go back to our financial update. East Boston revenues and budget. Good morning, Mr. Jackson.
Good morning, everyone. Morning. Thanks, Mr. Callahan. For East Plus 4, at the end of the second year of 5 years, the 24-month period, we have collections right above $250 million. As we look at the graph, I had staff clean up this graph on page 11 to get rid of some of the prior years so it wouldn't look too busy. But if you look at that straight line across right below the $7.5 million, initially we budgeted to have revenues of about $7 million. We increased it, I believe, last year to revenues would be about $7.3 million. But as you can see in the chart, revenue collections have been coming in pretty good. For the calendar year 22, which is the light blue line, you can see where we ended up. For calendar year 23, it's the dark green line. For the 23 year, for example, for the last collection that's in this graph, which is December, we budgeted to collect for $7.3 million. We actually collected $11.8 million, which was about $4.5 million more than what we had budgeted. For the year of FY23, well, for calendar year 23, we collected on average over $3 million of what we had budgeted. In a few months, we're going to come back and bring some budget adjustments for East Bluffs based upon the tax collections and also the interest collections for the additional revenue we are receiving.
Ms. Hall?
We had
Jackson, before you go on, are there any repercussions for us projecting so much under what we've actually received? Is the $4.5 million, is that just accolades to us? Oh, good, we had
No,
high
you have to-
tourism, or is there a problem with us being so far underneath in our projections?
No, you have to remember when we actually did the budgets and projections for East Bluffs 4, it was maybe 5 years ago. No one anticipated the pandemic and the causes and some of the things that resulted from the pandemic. For instance, the property values being overpriced and people continued shopping. So no one anticipated the type of revenue streams that not only for East Bluffs, but for all type of revenue streams for not only county and government entities, but private businesses as well. Everybody has benefited from the additional revenue that we have been receiving. By state law, if there's excess revenue at the end of the projects, by state law, we're supposed to, I believe, give that back to the taxpayers. But as we've pointed out time in the past that yes, the revenues have gone up, but so have the expenditures. Yes, the revenues may have gone up by 40%, but your expenditures may have gone up by 50%. So it's gonna be a balancing act until we get to the end of the project. We're trying to keep up with the cost of projects, and we're hoping that the additional revenue that we have coming in will cover that cost at the end of E4.
Board members, I really think this is very important and something we need to really think about going forward.
Yes. Thanks to Bill and his team. They look at the cash flow projections every month. We look at the revenue that's coming in, but again, we also have to look at the increasing costs that we are incurring.
Dr. Brinkman?
So we're going to collect for the 60 months, what we
Correct.
collect. We know the budget, I mean, the budget's already 38 million more from the original on what we say is our current budget. We know that that number is going to go up because costs aren't, I mean, could go down, but probably not.
Right.
We have our list of everything we want to do that the voters said yes to. So I'm guessing after the 60 months of collection, because it takes us so many years to spend that money, we can continue to spend that money to do things on the list.
Exactly.
And then at some point in time, we would say, we've done everything on the list, we collected all this money, we have leftover money, now we give it back? Because, I mean, we're still looking at like spending E3. Like, when would we, by state law, have to say we've collected too much and we've got to give back?
Mr. Jackson, unless you know the legal answer.
Yeah.
I would say,
Don't
and
answer.
I'm not saying you
Go ahead.
don't. What I'm saying is, let's consult with our counsel before we say something.
Correct.
That's definitive, because one option is, once we get to our budget number within the 5-year period of 60 months, we just stop collections early. That's
Gotcha.
one option. Another option is, we're allowed to keep collecting to pay for existing projects
Correct.
where inflationary costs have changed the overall costs. So that's another option. Before we say definitively, here are the rules, let's just make sure we get guidance from legal on what the rules are and what our options are, unless you know.
No.
But I'm
No,
just throwing
you're
that
correct.
out there.
Yeah.
And
I
like
didn't
I
want
said,
you to
we
have to
could
ask the
have-
legal, but it would be nice to know the bigger picture on how that looks.
Yeah.
So thank you, Sean, as a lawyer.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I'm saying that as school board member, not as a lawyer. I'm just saying, we don't want to make a public statement and then find out, whoops, we got to tweak it. So let's just make sure we're all on the same page and we get good advice from
Yes.
legal before we move forward. Ms. Hall?
My thought in asking the question was that East Bluffs has been such a wonderful, positive, and had such a wonderful, positive impact on our county that I want to make sure that its health and its reputation remains sterling, so that we can move
Yes.
forward to a E5, E6,
Yes.
and that we're staying within the parameters of what we originally intended.
Yes. We will continue to spend East Bluffs funds from the collections on the projects that the voters approved. And that may be another 5, 6, it could be 10 years from now that we will continue to spend money on those projects. Even though we may collect the money in 5 years, we will spend the money as needed.
We're still spending E2 money.
Yes,
so-
we-
Yeah.
Okay, we have slides 12 through 14. We moved these earlier in the presentation. They're just summary slides to show revenues for East Bluffs 2, East Bluffs 3, and East Bluffs 4. Again, they're just the revenue summaries and graphs. Slides 15 through 25, we include the history of unallocated funds for E2. Again, those are slides 15 through 25. We do the same thing in slides 26 through 28 to pick up unallocated budget amounts for E3, just to show a history of where we have unallocated funds, whether it's from additional revenue, we completed some projects, we have money left over in projects, we transfer it to unallocated, we let it sit there until we have to use it for an additional project. For instance, we may have money left over at one school, we transfer money to unallocated, but the cost of another project that was voted on in E3 went up, so we transfer the additional revenue from unallocated to that project in E3. Beginning on slide 29 through slide 31, again, are just the expenditure summary by categories for E2, E3, and E4. Then we get into the individual project budgets, starting on slide 32. I won't get into the detail of the expenditure budgets. We normally let the capital projects teams talk about the individual projects, where they are as far as current projects and what they are projecting to have in the works over the next few months. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Jackson, and I appreciate the detail we provide in this packet on a monthly basis. It's there for us to review and for the public, and it'll be on our CIC committee web page as well. The other thing I just wanted to mention, keep in mind, Ms. Hall and Dr. Bringman, I remember back in earlier East Blast, we were looking at trend and projecting out 2 or 3 years. But in the last East Blast, COVID happened. You know, so we're in year 2 of E4 or year 3?
We're at the end of year 2.
So we're in
And
year
they're
3.
years. Right.
Right? Hopefully, things keep going well, but we don't know what's coming for the next
Correct.
2.5 years.
Exactly.
So it's good to plan, but I stopped trying to speculate a long time ago because, anyway. But it's good. It's going to be good to get clarification from legal on what we can do with excess funds, and we could tentatively plan without making decisions
Correct.
right now. All right. Yep. Dr. Howard Hall?
Should be asked later. I was just sitting there thinking about the unallocated funds and things that go on since we had the change with GOUL. Now it's remaining open, and the funds that's needed for renovation, would that come from unallocated funding or what
The
we
definitive
currently have?
answer on that is it depends.
It depends, yeah.
And I'm not being flippant, but if you look at our regular board meetings over the past several months, we're regularly moving money from either unallocated or from other projects to to specific projects like that to fund them. So I think, I don't even know if that's been decided yet, but I think it could come from unallocated, it could come from somewhere else. I think finance and accounting or facilities and finance will figure that out.
Yes.
But it is a funding source. We still have rules about how we use it because it's an East Blast fund. All right, thank you, Mr. Jackson. Moving on to our operations report. Who's leading that off? Ms. Miller-Kegler?
Requested an opportunity to give an update on design guidelines. Do you want to still bring that forward?
Oh, I think what we wanted to do was get an operations, like where are we on existing projects? Highlight there.
Bill, if you're ready, you can go ahead.
Yeah.
Is that what you were asking for?
Yeah, let's do that. Then we've got our LMWB update with Mr. Formy, and we'll see what time we have left after that.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, so we'll start with the program schedule, and once again, in the interest of time, I will not walk through every project, but just to let you know that we do update this. This is a dynamic document, and as we bring projects, we look at projects that need to be done, we're able to finalize schedules, we're able to put these on our program schedule, and so you can take a look at that as we go through the program. We'll keep this up to date. Capital outlay funding. Last month, I discussed this in quite detail. And just to say that our FY21 application does have a project in Schumann, and there are funds available for that. We will not be doing that particular project within this timeline that would be required by capital outlay. And so, and again, as I talked about last month, it's best that we take that project, remove it from the application, and those dollars that were allocated for that and approved for that will go back into the entitlement. We will not lose those, but if we do happen to get started and don't get 100% complete, we can lose some dollars, so we don't want to do that. So that's one project that is being looked at, and we're also looking at some other ones that have been on some future applications. Again, here's our update on the capital outlay and the pending payment there for that 2020 will be received in the next couple of months. That project's 100% complete. That was the New Hampstead K-8 project, and so we do have final from the state on that we'll be able to zero that off, and then we'll get into the 2021. We did not make application in 24 or 25, and of course 26 is coming up this year, so we'll evaluate that and see if we're going to be able to make application. Our capital plan, and great discussion about the financing, so hopefully my discussion here will complement that. As you see with the E3, and I might just mention too, because somebody mentioned E2, yes, the E2 program is still open, and we're working hard to close that. I would expect that in the next 2 to 3 months, we'll be able to close that program. And that's just a matter of closing all the open POs, making sure that all the dollars are taken care of, and that's what we're in the process of doing. So E3 right now, as you can see, is extended out into 2025 even. And again, a lot of that, I think, was a result of COVID, because as you will recall, we put a number of projects basically on hold because we didn't know what our proceeds were going to be. And so we put projects on hold, and now that the proceeds have been completed in that, we are working through that. We're putting those projects into execution. And so we are going to, through 24 into 25, even be making expenditures. We pretty much have all the proceeds. You know, we're getting interest, few interest dollars. As you see from 2024, we're projecting out some interest dollars. And so we've got a pretty good handle on what our funds are, and so now we can complete the project work and work towards closing that program out. In E4, of course, we're 2 years into it now, so these are the actuals for 22 and 23. You can add them up. We had expenditures of about 22 million, but we had proceeds of 258 million. So we've got some money to expend. Look at 24. We've got $219 million of projection of expenditures. We're deep into this right now. We have the majority of our new projects, our additions. We're getting into the major modifications and renovation work that we're doing. Lots of HVAC, and HVAC costs have really gone up a lot. So we're in the middle of a lot of those, and as was discussed also, yes, proceeds are up, but costs also have gone up. And so it's good that we have those, because now we can complete those projects. And as we start looking at future projections for proceeds, yeah, we can do these projects, all the projects, hopefully, that that were put into the application for E4. And as I will discuss later on also, we're really taking kind of a new look at some of these projects. We used to say, if we're going to renovate a project, well, we're going to go in and we're going to paint the walls, we're going to take, replace the ceilings, the floors, and just basically give it a nice facelift. Well, we are now looking at being able to take schools out, put them into swing spaces. Now you got that whole building for 1 year, and you can do a whole lot more than that. You can do with the HVAC, you can do the lighting, you can do any other types of modifications. One thing that we are asking right now, instead of just, the finishes themselves, we want to find out, is that school functional? Or do we have to make some modifications so that the programs will be able to be delivered at a much better, higher level? Why? It makes no sense at all for us to go in and just put finishes in the building and then have the principal say, yeah, but I still have a problem with this particular room. It just doesn't work for me. So now we're going to be able to go in and do those types of things. And we're looking at other things maybe that because the school is empty, we're much easily able to take windows out, replace windows. You can't do that very well when the school is occupied. So I think what you're going to see is that these renovation projects are going to really change these schools, and it's going to bring them up to much better standards. Hopefully, when you walk in the front door, you're going to go, wow, this is much different than what it previously has been. So that's all in the planning. And
Mr. Huddinga, question and comment and a question. One, I really appreciate that relook given the changed circumstances. I think that's smart, and I think that'll save us time and money long-term, so I appreciate that comment. Generally, on our big projects, our smaller projects, and then just on our renovation projects, would you say material costs and labor subcontractor costs, are they about the same now as they were last year and 2 years ago? Do you see them going down a bit, or do you see them going up a bit, or does it really depend on the material and the trade specifically?
I think it depends a lot on the material and the trade. What we're seeing right now is not any kind of a major increase in costs. We're maybe seeing a leveling. We've got a couple of projects that we're putting out to bid. A major renovation project at Formy will be out to bid shortly. And so I think we're going to get a much better handle on that. But when we look at the prices that we received on Bloomingdale, for instance, and compare that with a year ago with Windsor Forest, no, there isn't anything that's really substantially different. So
So you'd say they've
that's
leveled
good
off?
news. I would say that they have leveled off,
Okay.
yes.
Thank you.
Our 6 through 12 complex, the GMG building, contractor is working to complete the punch list. As you know, the furniture has been stored in a warehouse. That's going to be released and coming out and start to be installed in mid-March. There are some modifications to that building that need to be made in order to convert it and have rooms available for sixth grade through 12th. Of course, 12th was going to be in the building, but we do have to make some small modifications, and that work will be mostly completed by early summer. Solar panels on the roof, that's going to get started in April. And we've just had our first kickoff meeting on coordinating the move of Mercer and Groves to the new facility, coordinating all of the internal departments, technology, et cetera, so that we can have a nice, smooth transition once school is over. Because obviously, once school is over in May, it's going to be a real rush, so we have to be sure that we're ready to have a nice, smooth transition into the new facility.
Mr. Huddinga, is our plan to have the contractor complete punch list, walk away from the site before we start moving in and doing our cabling and furniture and whatever else we're doing, or is there going
Yes,
to
sir.
be overlap?
Yes, sir, that is the plan.
Okay, thank you.
The field house, which is...
Sorry, Dr. Howard Hall.
Yes, thank you. I'd just like to thank Ms. Kegler-Miller and her team, well, Ms. Miller-Kegler and her team for coming out to the Garden City neighborhood community meeting on Tuesday. The community is excited as well as a lot of angst is in the air regarding the sound as far as the stadium is concerned. And I think it's very good that we've had experience with building a stadium, and so they were able to answer the questions that a lot of the constituents had regarding the stadium due to our stadium that we have at Savannah High in the Islands.
Sure.
So I appreciate you all being able to come out in the evening to explain that and talk with the community, because we just want to continue to remain friendly within the community because a lot is going on. And as they see that beautiful facility, of course, questions are arousing. And I mentioned also via email regarding the playground areas. It's 2 locations for soft play. And since the school is now converting to 612, although we're going to have pre-K there, will it be a wasted area with having 2 playgrounds that's designed for grades K-5, since now it would be a middle school and high school? Or we'll be able to just utilize both of those play areas, you know, with the pre-K and maybe 5th grade, 6th, I don't know. But I know that it's beautiful. I hadn't had a chance to tour or see. I'm not sure if any other board members had a chance to go out there yet, but we're looking forward to taking a sneak peek as well.
Yes, yes. And I think that's all being evaluated as it's being looked at, turning the building to 612 and making sure that all those spaces function well for those grade levels, because obviously there was some earlier grades that were anticipated. So there is some modification work that has to be done, and that would all be part of it. At the field house, a lot of excavation work going on, foundations for the field house itself. We are anticipating a change coming in the field house facility itself, some modifications that need to be made for Campus Place. So we'll have more on that in the next next month or two. And then we get into Windsor Forest. Again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on these projects because its construction moves along and they're on schedule. The one issue with this one, however, is and I've talked about this before, we do not have a full site permit. We need to work through and get that done so that we can do that site work that's needed for the building and certainly for the athletic fields.
Dr. Brinkman?
Yeah, I'll start, I guess, because you just ended on the permit. Where are we in those conversations? Are we still at the same place with the city? Have we made any headway?
We are, and they kind of dropped off after we got our conditional permit, because what we got initially was, it's a conditional permit.
Yes, correct. Yep.
Because there was one department that would not sign off.
Correct.
And once that department, and we're working with that department right now, because
Okay.
all the rest of them are all signed off. So if we can get that department to approve and sign off, then we are completed. So discussions are going to get started in earnest again here. We're just putting together the documents that we need in order to begin those discussions with them.
Okay, and then my other question is, we've had a recent increase of 30% in the FTE numbers that are now being presented at CIC. So the initial, if you go back 4 or 5 CIC meetings, that FTE was 900, and now it's 1175, and that's a close to a 30% increase. I have done some digging and have figured that we are now basing that FTE off of learning units rather than classrooms. Am I correct?
The FTE is based on instructional units.
Instructional units,
IUs.
sorry, yeah.
And so and the architect goes through and that's his program.
Correct.
He puts his program together based upon IUs. He has the number of IUs, 63 IUs for a high school. Now, if you go to some GDOE documents, some charts, you can look under 63, 64 IUs, and that will give you what that FTE would be. And that's how this is calculated.
Okay, so were we making a mistake in the 900, or are we using a different formula to get this 1175? I'm just trying to figure out if the FTEs on the other buildings are using the same formula that we're using on the Windsor. Does that make sense?
Everybody is using the same formula. That 900 number, and all I can do is say that came from about 3 years ago when we first started programming.
And just
it,
was left on the
And it
that's-
just stayed on that one program slide across. But I'll guarantee you and assure you that we have the 63
Oh, no, I've
items.
looked, yeah, I got
Went through and
I got
counted
the
them?
list, yeah, I got the list, and that makes so much more sense when you see things that we
Correct.
consider instructional units, not learning, rather than just classrooms, because that's one of the, yeah, so, okay, thank you for that clarification.
Correct. Okay, and then I'll continue to put these, because I like these pictures. These are some nice pictures of
The
this
AI pictures?
facility. All right, Bloomingdale, pretty much the same-ish, same condition as last. Just really working through construction. We'll keep updated pictures here. A lot of foundation work going on. One issue that we're working through right now in Bloomingdale is the contractor will require some additional time in the day. He's got 15 very large pours, concrete pours that he needs to do. And in order to do that and get that all scheduled with a number of trucks that have to come in, allowing time for it to get set properly, et cetera, he needs to work outside of the normal construction hours. And so this is an issue that needs to still be addressed with the city, that we can allow that to happen. And he's got all kinds of safeguards that are going to be put in place, you know, to make sure that everything is done to protect noise in the neighborhood, et cetera. But that's one issue that needs to be resolved, because if not, then he's going to have to break all those pours up into smaller pours, and that just extends the schedule. And this schedule is very, very tight anyway. So, and that discussion with the city is going to take place here shortly. So hopefully we can get that done.
Ms. Grabowski?
Mr. Hunting, I'm glad to hear we're working with the city on that. Does that also include working or sitting out notices and updates to
It
to the
definitely
neighborhood?
would. Yes,
Yeah.
definitely would. I think part of that program will be, let's make sure that everyone in the neighborhood is aware when these are going to be happening, so that there's going to be no surprises, and that would definitely be part of that program, along with other types of things that can be done to, you know, like even backup beepers. You know, you don't need one of those going off. And try to eliminate those types of things. Ms. Grabowski, last month you asked about sidewalks around this facility, and that's that hashed-in area. There are sidewalks just within the campus itself, around the facility, not on the streets, okay? So I think you had received a drawing that showed that. But this drawing here indicates it also. I don't have them done in a different color, but you can see the sidewalks in the hashed area around the facility. And that's pretty much what it had been with the original one.
So
There
we
are
don't-
no street sidewalks,
So there's no sidewalks along South Pine or Church Street?
no. No, and there's no sidewalks any around the connecting neighborhood either.
I would hope that we could at least provide them on our property.
Okay.
We can spend lots of money on parking lots. We can spend some money on sidewalks.
All right, we'll review that.
Is that a legal issue between us and the municipality, or is that internally our issue? Like, we can make that decision? I think we need to know that. So let's,
We could do it on our property. I think, you know, it may be better to work with the municipality and so that it is something that's better. I just think it's,
yeah, I also think we can put a sidewalk anywhere we want, but if
We
the
can.
municipality didn't put one on that road for safety reasons or whatever, they may not allow us to do that from I don't know what all the ins and outs are. I'm just saying, let's explore that issue and get that answer question. That's all, that
yeah,
question
I agree.
answered. That's all
I
I'm
agree.
saying.
Yeah.
Okay, we definitely can do that.
Okay. Mr. Huttinga, in the interest of time, we've got another presentation. I'm going to ask this. For any of the remaining projects in the presentation, is there anything out of the ordinary that we need a heads up on? Hold on, I'm asking him first.
I don't believe so. These are just all updates as we're going through. One question that was asked last month also were about those poles in front of Savannah Arts. We do have a work order signed for Georgia Power to remove those. They haven't been done yet, but they will be.
Okay. Does
And,
anyone, oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, I think the rest of it is just updates,
Okay.
continuing work on getting through designs and programming.
Okay, the board received a copy of the packet before the meeting. Does anyone have any specific questions about any of the projects that, other than, Ms. Hall?
Forgive me for thinking he was asking us instead of you, Mr. Huttinger. I'm a little confused about the Henderson Forming renovations. If it's going out for RFP next month, I can see most of the items here would be a classic renovation any place. But the fact that it's talking about replacing all furniture with new furniture, we haven't decided on the grade configuration of Formy. So how are we able to do a RFP if we're not at all certain of what age children will be attending?
And when we put that on the list, that's just the work that we anticipate to do, but it will not be part of the March bid.
Oh,
The March bid is just the construction itself. Yes.
Dr. Howard Hall?
Yes, earlier in the year, some parents from New Hampstead had concerns about the field conditions at New Hampstead. Is there an update on the progress of what's going on with New Hampstead's practice fields?
The practice field is complete, and the track is the one that still is being held back until springtime to get that track resurfaced. I'm sorry.
Mr. Johnson?
The playfield's complete.
I would like to follow up on that. It's, the field surface and the track, the New Hampshire community understands that, but they're more worried about fencing around it. And do we know where we are with the fencing for that campus?
Yes, I know that's been brought up, and we certainly do need to do that, want to do that along with the campus police. And so my best understanding is that that is being planned and will be completed. Still in, hopefully we can get a schedule out for you shortly on that.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Huttinger, thank you. If anyone has other questions for Mr. Huttinger or Ms. Miller-Kegler or facilities, please direct it to them. Mr. Formy, come on up. I'm glad to have you here and give us an update on our LMWBE efforts in conjunction with our East Boss program.
This button right here. I want to go backwards. Go backwards, hit that button. Okay. Good. How about that? You ready to go?
Yeah, ready to go. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. President, and Madam Superintendent, and the rest of the gang. Bill laughs at me because he's the least literate when it comes to computer stuff. But I've heard all sorts of hints about time. I've been here.
We
You
told you
Mr.
you
Moss,
got
relax a minute,
7.5
okay?
minutes. We know that means 10.
I lost 3 minutes, huh?
I know, well, you're asking,
I
so
was late 3, for that matter.
get to the substance.
All right, we're going right into it. I'll start like this. The state of LMWBE activity in the school district, like the president says, is strong, okay? And I can say that emphatically because of having come out of COVID. We have projects to work on, a lot of hungry women-owned and minority entities. And I suppose you thought I brought my posse with me today. It's back there in the corner, and I'll get to them just a second. They're not as interested in staying, as least interested in staying as you are, because they want to go back to work. But I'm going to move on.
Well, are you going to introduce them?
I will.
Okay, good.
Okay.
wanted to make.
I didn't want to start out that way.
That's fine.
You-
I just didn't want to end the meeting before you introducing them, that's all.
Okay, thank you. I really appreciate that,
Thank
sir.
you. We're glad they're here. And-
There's some good folks. I talked to them, and
yeah.
I actually asked them to come as a representative sampling of all the good work that's being done in capacity building, capability. That's a real term. And I don't know whether you've had a chance, and I'll get to it. I'm going to flip through these slides, and if you want to go back to them or ask me a question about them, let me know. These slides will reflect, let's see here. First of all, the goals. If you haven't read it, you can go back and read it later. This particular package communicate the experience and capacity building opportunities that are and will be available as part of SCCPSS's East Blocks program. Okay? Simple. We collaborate with business development partners to increase the level of knowledge and skill in business intelligence. I want to emphasize business intelligence. These folks are very busy. They're very brave. In fact, they took upon themselves to proceed entrepreneurially. A couple of them in here I'll introduce in a second are second and third, and one is fourth generation minority business. One of the goals is to, as it's expressed, assist the firms with navigating the pre-qualification process for project participation. What we've had in the past, if we had the prime contractors always indicate, well, we don't find anybody that's capable. We don't have the qualifications and that sort of stuff. I'll get back to that in just a second. Reads the way it reads there. Assist the firms with identifying, pursuing, proposing, bidding, and successfully performing and work in accordance with project requirements. Do a lot of that with the number of them that are in here and that are not in here today. We'll talk about that if we have to. There's a young lady on here that you may recognize. She doesn't have her glasses on.
I don't have them then.
All right. We create new and stronger businesses, strategic alliances, and overall MWB development results that strengthen the local construction industry. We maintain, many maintain, that bringing on women-owned and minority entities boosts our capacity in the community, not only their capacity. And again, one of the reasons I wanted them here is for them to hear what the board has to say. One way of building your capacity is to find out what your customers and the owners want, what they're looking at. This is the first time I think many of them have ever come into a place like this. Here's specifically what we look for. We want to create new and strengthen existing LWB businesses that demonstrate fruitful and sustainable communities in Chatham County and Georgia and any other place they tend to go. Don't y'all like my pictures? Anyway, we're going to move on. The objective here is to establish the effective program to encourage the participation of LMWs and workers in this district for the purposes of construction. To be accountable for achieving measurable outcomes in LWB project engagement, okay? Y'all can read it. Now, go back to this later. This I've referred to as the sort of the guts of the program. If we want contractors, small and minority women-owned, to succeed, you actually have to, when you're the owner and have the reins and control, you can dictate the interest that they express in their subs, the level of interest, by I hate to say making them do this, but I feel like I'm qualified to do so. I've been in business 40 years and was successful enough to be one of the Black Enterprise 100, it's number 75 and 74, et cetera. So I know what it takes to enmesh yourself in business. It takes a push and a pull from the customer. In my case, I was a distributor, and a push from the folks that are working along with them. Go back and take a look at that. I won't read it all in detail because the president and the chairman will choke me. Let's see. I hope you can see this fairly clearly. This is an important juncture here. I think I showed this to the board
a year or so, a couple of years ago maybe. It's a program I worked out with the SBAC, Small Business Assistance Corps, when Tony O'Reilly was here. He's since acquired. The problem we have, a lot of the problems across the country, is tough for very good operators, such as those that are sitting back there in the corner, to achieve capital, financing, that sort of stuff. So I sat with Tony and said, Tony, let's not do it only for the school district, but let's involve the county and the city as well. So if you could see that, we were able to get them to commit a line of credit process for them. And a couple of folks in here I know, or maybe more, have benefited, and at an interest rate at the time that was actually slightly on the higher side, okay, but not anymore. And they're maintaining. You can take a look at that when time permits you. Now, here's some more guts of the program. These numbers, dollars, were taken right out of the reports that were submitted by the prime contractors. And I'm kind of proud of this thing, okay? The gentleman you saw in the prior thing is sitting back there. I'll talk about him in just a second. But he was the prototype that we used for this particular program. I'll explain in a second. Now, if you look at these dollars, that's Jenkins. That Jenkins ended, what, a couple of years ago? They did pretty good in terms of inclusion. But what I want to point out on this one, JT Maddox Concrete. Where did he? He walked out? Must have fainted. Wait until, I think he wants to go to work. JT Maddox is the person that's on that particular part. We had Pelote Corporation that benefit. I'm going to point out significant things in just a second. Pelote Corporation, $1.6 million at that point. And when you get ready, go back and look again. We'll proceed. Windsor Forest, Mr. Brinkman. J.E. Dunn is doing a great job this time around in terms of inclusion. I think I calculated the inclusion percentage at 33% so far for what they're doing in your neighborhoods over there. They're coming along pretty good. Everybody here is either a woman-owned or minority operator, okay? If you got questions, you can ask me momentarily. Now, I do want to, this is how I'm doing this, Mr. Kochmar, at the top of McKnight there on Grove Stadium. She's shy, but she's a tough worker. I want you to stand up, Emerald, R.J. Hall, and wave at him. She is, that's very, she knows her business out there. And you can see the dollars that we got them to commit to. $1,133,000. They're doing all of the, what is it, flat work? Okay, good. She also did the Savannah Arts Academy. All right? Now, her father started the company, but she's taking it from him because it's making money now, so she... Don't tell him I said that. Okay?
You know this is on recorded forever, right?
Say it again?
This is being recorded forever.
Oh, it's great.
YouTube.
Oh, yeah. I'd wore my good suit. All right. We got, stop going up and stop down. See, Bill, I can't do this. CPPI over there, it's just CMG or GMG and that kind of thing, Ms. Hall. They did fairly well in terms of inclusion, if you look at it. Okay? There, that one particular one further down the line, I'm just picking out certain stuff. Honey Bear Hauling. Honey Bear, and that's a fourth generation hauling company. And Honey Bear hauled every brick and block from out of town for that school. Very, very proud of what he does. It's just, matter of fact, I hate to say it, but he had the uncle who was working with him that flipped over in one of the trucks. I forget which road he was on. And Honey Bear sent a replacement truck within an hour and a half and kept going. So I called his uncle Timex. He took a licking and kept on kicking. Let's see. Anybody have, okay. Now here's a lady we ought to be proud of. She worked for the district for a long time at the top, at Bloomingdale Elementary. Dee Vance, stand up and wave your hand. All right, everybody knows Dee. That lady knows more construction than most guys I know. Thank you, Dee. See, I also further down the line, I think she is she's one of the program managers with that operation. What's really unique, she's passing on the expertise to her grandsons. She's got a grandson. She won't let them be lazy. She had them out there on weekends, stringing fences and stuff like that. She's tough. All right, does a great job. I may be skipping somebody that I need to talk about, but I just wanted to give you a sampling of the other folks. And like I said earlier, Savannah Arts Academy, we had Ms. Hall there, and Pat Mathis also participated in that. Now, I'm just going to, these are various renderings here. Don't pay attention to this yet. Sit down at home and take a look at it. But the purpose of doing this, even though they're somewhat dated, anybody familiar with disparity studies that got started 15 years ago? And if you see, look at the yellow, the MWBE stuff in terms of construction in our market for small purchases is 12.84%. The non-MBE, as you see, was 87.16. We want to get another one of those going one day soon. Same thing applies here. As you see, the non-MWBE at the bottom there, 3 million versus 178,000. Because a lot of times when you don't see minority participation in certain categories, most of the time is because they don't have the wherewithal to involve themselves in various categories. And on. Now, don't even try to look at this. This is, if you can get a magnifying glass one day, so it looks up there, you'll see underutilized and overutilized, okay, in terms of percentages. So take each of those columns, and you'll see why programs such as this are required and needed. Okay. I want to talk about Shawana Marshall just a second. If you look at Shawana, I think, is doing what received a contract, a sort of record contract for a minority contractor, all female oriented, all of $1.9 million, almost $2 million to supply. What do you have to, tell them what you do, Shawana, if you will? Construction supply, which is a non-traditional endeavor for many minority companies. She is able to provide at competitive prices. She's no front. Just want to make sure, because I've been in this business for a long time. And it's tough to get credit, access to the product, the pricing. She got this competitively. I'd like to add as well, she, I think, had a, involvement of over $6 million for the city of Savannah, and was selected the minority contractor of the year for the arena project, okay? Because she's rolling. She's gonna do very well, and her creditors love her. It's important, yeah, and she gets that stuff there on time. All right, let's see. A few of these others, we have a lot of gatherings, particularly when we're approaching a particular project. Bill mentioned some stuff coming along a little bit later, current happening now. Greg's not here, but most of you know Miguel Camacho in the back. Okay, I could stand up here all day and tell you about his company's accomplishments across the Southeast and other places. And if you take a look at the delineation of participation here, you'll see their works precede them in terms of quality. He mentioned to me, and I'll say this, mentioned to me that his company received what they, you tell them, Camacho, stand up. You wanted me to talk about you? Stand up and tell them what you just received, what your company just received. Don't pretend you don't know. But you just received up in Guilford County in North Carolina, right? Yes. What was that? 500 million? 515 million. Okay, thank you very much. I wanted them to know. Now, he started.
Well, hold on, he's being modest. The company's also been nationally recognized for its longevity and growth and good services as well. Yes, thank you. And they've been, and not to exclude anyone else here, I see several long-term partners of the district, but Brownstone's and Mr. Camacho in particular have been valued partners with the district since East Bluffs 1. So
that's right.
Thank you for your continued partnership.
And what, you started off with 3 or 4 folks, and now you got how many?
We started off with 3 when we first got our first contract in Savannah. We got up to 6, and then last week we got 44.
All right, congratulations. Now, if this number is incorrect, you can blame my sister who works for me. If you add up all of these numbers here, since the end of COVID, I guess, which would have been Jenkins, they all total up to $49,865,760. Trey and Starla of stand up and tell you, you think I talk long? This guy talks. Okay, but they're very impressive couple. Tell them, Trey, what you.
Yes, sir. We owners of Chemical Solutions LLC. What we do is we consolidate most of the dump trucking companies within the region. Total of 38 companies total from Brunswick and South Carolina, and we consolidate the trucking industry so that we can help the process of most of the projects that are going on in Savannah.
All right, I think you have access now to what, about 50 trucks?
That's correct.
All right. And they're on the page there as well. Those folks sitting next to you work with you, right?
That's correct. This is the superstar team right here. I want to make sure they stand up.
Yeah, please.
Mr. Reggie, Mr. Charlie, and Mr. Marcus, general manager.
All right. Very good. Now, that was just a random sampling of the good folks. There are a lot more of them, okay? And we plan to expand our reach as we have projects. We'll have these gatherings that you see up there in the first little, what's that, hexagon? That was held at Windsor Forest as well. Now, I think Dale and Camacho are pointing out having finished White Bluff Elementary School. They're a meaningful partner in that one. Okay, I'm not gonna bog you down with a lot more details. If you're interested, you can read it, and if you got questions, please give me a call. And I don't know how that guy in the back there waving, he got into this thing. Who took that picture? All righty.
Blaming your sister for that too?
Yeah, she did it.
Buck stops with you.
Yeah, it does. Bucks goes out from me.
Right.
Okay.
So before we get into questions, Mr. Formby, that was 22 minutes, so I'm billing you for the extra.
22?
I talked for 1, so I'll take 1 minute off of that.
All right.
In all seriousness, I'm not trying to give this topic short shrift. It's important. We've had periodic updates from Vanguard and you throughout East Bluffs, and I'm glad we could provide another one today. I've been on the board for a long time, since the end of E1, and we have, I've seen our policies kind of morph over the years to try to encourage and grow local capacity, and specifically LMWBE capacity, but that includes local businesses as well. East Bluff is funded and it's approved by taxpayers. That's all of us in this room, including you and your businesses and the people that work with you and for you. I'm a big fan of East Bluff because somewhere between 30 and 45% of the money comes from tourists. So we're getting a return on our tax, and it's exponential because it comes from visitors. So I think it's a smart financial tool. But being able to have a lot of that money go back into the local community
Yes.
rather than go out of the community or the region is really important to us as a board. That's been a board goal, for years with East Bluff. Mr. Formey touched on, the capital issue, and, we are a big lumbering bureaucracy that is governed not only by local policies, but by the state of Georgia as well. So we can't just hand out money to anybody that wants to do work with us. People have to jump through hoops, meet regulatory and licensing and insurance requirements, and that's, I say jump through hoops. That's also good stewardship of tax dollars to make sure that the taxpayer is getting what they're paying for. And so what that does, frankly, is weed out marginal operators that aren't serious about trying to do business the right way and trying to do business in a professional manner. And you in the room and many others who've continued to do business with us are examples of local businesses working hard that we want to continue to partner with because you're putting the effort in and we're trying to keep the money local. Over the last several East Bluffs, we've asked questions of Vanguard and Mr. Formey and our business partners. What do we do as a district from a policy and regulatory perspective that creates impediments for you? We've tried to change our bonding and licensing requirements and our access to capital requirements a little bit. We've tried to parcel out our projects into smaller pieces so that more companies that have smaller bonding capacity can bid on them, and we continue to try to look at those issues. So I will ask you in the room and anyone listening, tell Mr. Formey, contact anybody on the board directly. Let us know what it is about doing business with the district, about our policies that might be an impediment to you in terms of growth. In terms of just general operations. I can't promise you we're going to take everything you say and make changes, but a periodic look and refresh of our policies and the way we do business is, I think, healthy for any organization. And we want to continue to support businesses like yours and partnerships like yours. So please don't hesitate to let us know. I keep running into this roadblock here. I thought it was a really good move from Mr. Formey and some others in our facilities group to collaborate with the SBA. That happened a little bit ago, but that's just one of many good ideas about how we can get you capital. The other big issues I know are bonding, insurance issues, and we'll continue to look at that. So I really say, please give us feedback to the extent we can modify how we do business. We'll take a look at it. And the final thing I'll say is, I'm not speaking for the current board up here because we haven't had that policy discussion, but the boards I've been on since I came on the board in August 2011, and we've modified our policies. The overarching policy goals were, number one, to keep as much of the East Bluff money local as possible. Number two, to build capacity. As a taxpayer, I want 7 companies bidding on a job, right? Or 9 companies. I don't want 1 or 2 big players who are bidding, the two or three big companies bidding on the same jobs over and over. And because of the size of some jobs, that may just be where we are. And I know, though, that we've had more bidders on smaller jobs and pieces of bigger jobs. But I would encourage everyone, look for the next level. The whole point of this program is to build capacity, to create a good living and jobs for our local community and keep money in the local community, but also build capacity so we, as a tax spending entity, have more competition and we get more value, frankly. So thank you all for being here, and that's my 3-minute soapbox speech. And I'll now, anyone else on the board has questions or comments, we're happy to entertain them. Ms. Hall, did you have your hand up earlier?
Covered my comment.
Okay.
I'm so happy about the local participation, because that's keeping our pledge to our taxpayers and our voters who voted this program in, that we mean what we say about that.
Makes for a healthy community, too. We want healthy youngsters. If their parents are, then it passes on down. Yes.
Dr. Howard Hall?
Yes, I often ask you to speak during the meeting, so I appreciate Mr. Cashmore giving you the opportunity to bring your team in. We often look at the LMWBEs on paper in black and white, but it's good to see it live in action and in color. I know that the pre-qualification process is the most difficult. So what does that pool look like for those who are still unqualified, but they are trying to become qualified? What does that pool look like regarding a percentage as for those that are able to participate and those that are still waiting?
We have a tremendous number of operators who are very, very good at what they do, but they can't get into the game. So what we've asked the prime contractors, which I hope they'll be one day, to provide instructional programs. And every one of the operators that you see listed here, the 5 or 6 that we have, they bring them into their office, bring those folks into their office, and they tell them, this is how we do business, and this is how we want you to do business, and we'll help you if we feel that you're ready. We'll help you with the bonding. We'll go out and do that sort of thing. We're at that stage in a couple of issues now. The percentage comparison, there's a larger number of those who will do well once they're able to do well. And I see that happening as we even into the next 5, East Plus 5 and that sort of stuff. And even now, some of these jobs are just getting going and they haven't been fully awarded. So we're riding their tails to make sure that they bring in folks and train them, all right? JT was back there. Where'd he go? Again, he didn't know. JT has sat in on 3 or 4 different training operations and classes for the past 4 or 5 years. And now he's able to get bonding at a certain level now. No one wanted to talk to him. What do you got? You got no financial statement. You don't have the things that we need to do. So I've taken him in and a couple of other operators in to tell them how you approach these guys. And my office is an open door, as you probably have heard. They come knock on my door all the time to try to figure out what do we need to do. The SBAC has programs as well that can boost. So percentage-wise, I don't want to hazard a guess, but it's a greater number of them than there are that are participating in the game at a decent level.
Dr. Brinkman? Oh,
Let's
sorry.
just clap our hands and put our hands together for those that are sitting out here today that have met the standards.
You might already be doing this, but I would just want to ask that when we cut ribbons, we always have I know we have the list of everybody on the vinyl, but let's make sure that we're inviting all of these contractors and subcontractors to that day, so that we can celebrate them, so that the students that might participate in that ceremony see their community represented rather than just the big names. So thank you.
That's precisely right, and they're in there. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? One thing on the data real quick. So you had data in here that was City of Savannah data from several years ago.
Yeah, that was.
Here's what I want to say about that. I know the city and the county work hard as well to build local capacity. And I know they have some different regulatory structures than we have.
Right.
I will say that historically, we have had anywhere from low 20s to the 40s or even higher levels of LMWB participation on particular projects. And then East Bloss programs holistically, we're regularly in the 20s or 30s. And when you look at regional and state and national success rates, we're far out exceeding comparable districts and comparable
Yes.
programs. And
Thank you.
it's a concerted effort from our facilities team to program management when we had it, and then when we brought it in-house, to Mr. Vanguard's efforts, to the board and the superintendent, making this a deliberate part of our process. And so the data in here is not representative of school district accomplishments,
Right.
which are significantly higher than almost anyone else locally and in the state. So I appreciate that.
Thank you for recognizing that. Appreciate the opportunity.
All right.
What question?
Even though you had 7 minutes, I added like 19, so I apologize.
No, don't. That encourages me.
All right. If there are no other comments or questions, our next meeting is March 13. And with that, we are adjourned. Thank you very much.